programming. Okay, what is that linear expression or the linear expression? There will be a two parameter which are to be there. Then those parameters will vary with respect to that of their variation into like a straight line. Okay, those type of expressions are itself is called as the linear expressions. Okay, there will be x, then there will be a y. Okay, if you have taken x as a output, y as a input. Okay, whatever input you are going to increase, corresponds to that output will also be going to increase. Okay, this is the method what is to be considered. These type of parameter variations are to be used in case of the linear programming itself. For example, one industry is there. Okay, in that industry, there will be a presence of the raw material Y. That raw material is used to produce a product X. Okay, but to increase that productivity, obviously I should have enough amount of material. With respect to that, utilization of that material itself will cause the increase in the productivity. Okay, whether there will be a possibility in order to increase the productivity, that type of condition is called as maximizing. Then another one is that this is raw material. Okay, to make the production of this product, what I need to do? I need to use effective utilization of this raw material in order to minimize the usage of the raw material, which is required effectively to produce the product. That itself is called as minimizing of the system. Maximizing means increasing the production. That is what the maximizing. Okay, these two are having the relationship with respect to what? Both the product and raw material. Okay, these relations can be get defined by the what? One linear expression. Okay, that is y is equal to mx plus c. Okay, if you are considered. Okay, these are called as what? The linear expression. This is the what? The straight line expressions. Okay, to make use of these things, if you are using that modeling with respect to that of the mathematical expression, it itself is called as the linear programming model. Okay, there will be methods which are to be most commonly using in order to define the equation based on the whatever the problems which are to be defined in that problem, what type of constraints are to be present. Okay, the linear programming will deal with respect to that of optimization of minimizing the raw material which is to be required to produce a particular product and maximizing the production, considering the functions of variables. Those are itself is called as the objective function, which it is get subjected to what? A set of linear quantities or inequalities are itself is called as a constraints. Okay, one industry is there. For that industry, many inputs are there. Okay, to get a single output. Okay, those quantities, how are going to vary in this complete process, that can be defined. Measure whatever the objective function is there in order to minimize or in order to maximize. These things you can concentrate. For this, what we need to define? We need to define the inequalities and the linear quantities itself. Okay, equalities itself you have to define. Those are itself is called as a constraints. Okay, these things you are going to consider with respect to that of defining of all the constraints in order to model properly. Okay, then linear programming is what? It is a mathematical technique which will involve the allocation of limited resources in the optimal manner on the basis of given criterion of optimality. Whether you have to increase, whether you have to decrease, whether you have to minimize, whether you have to maximize. Based on condition, what constraints are you are considering in order to do maximization or the minimization. That can be used by the use of the mathematical expression. That itself is called as the linear programming, that you can remember. Okay, this is with respect to the what? The linear programming, which is to be used for the purpose of the implementation as well as the designing perspective point of view. Okay, how you are going to consider this one? That is also be very important. Okay, here the formulation. Okay, it is not required to note down. What is to be required to note down? Those things I'll declare. Those things you can note down. Okay, that is the formulation of the linear programming problems. Okay, they will take on consideration of the example of any industry or the operation or the management. For that, I need to construct the linear programming equation. Okay, or the canonical form or the mathematical model. Okay, that will have many steps. First, what you need to find in first step, to write down the decision variables of the problem. Okay, whatever problem or the exercise they have given, that example you have to read carefully. In that, which are the decision oriented variables that you have to take as x1, then x2 and x3. All these are non-negative numbers. It means that greater than or equal to 0. Okay, then whatever the decision variable you are going to consider, those decision variables numbers should be non-negative values. Those are to be taken as a decision variables. Second step is that to formulate objective function to be optimized for the purpose of minimization, for the purpose of maximization, as the linear function of the decision variables. For example, I will take a function z. Z is equal to, I will take as just an example, 2x1 plus 3x2. Okay, if I taken these two are variables, decision variables. Z is what? It is the objective. Okay, if it is maximize, then max of z. Okay, if it is minimize, min of z. Okay, but the maximization and minimizations are dependent on what? These x1 and x2. Okay, those are to be get considered as a decision variables. Those things you can remember. Don't forget at all. Next, third step, formulate the condition what is to be required. Okay, because the many constraints are to be present to make modeling of any mathematical expression. Among that, the formulation condition you are going to consider such a way that the resource limitations, then market constraints, then interrelation between the variables and etc. It might be linear inequalities or the equalities. Inequality means x1 is greater than or equal to 0. I don't know what is the value of x1. Equality constraints means x1 equal to 3 only, x1 equal to 0 only. These are what? Equality constraints. What type of decision you are going to consider, that also be defined in the condition. Then you are going to get the better solution. If not, which it is quite difficult to get the better solution among the individual. Then later you can add all those non-negativity constraints from the consideration. Okay, always the whatever the decision variable you are going to use, that should be a non-negative values. Then it doesn't have any valid interpretation. Okay, that also you have to keep in your mind. Okay, that is with respect to that of your fourth step. Because they might be asking you explain the steps involved in linear programming. Those things you can concentrate. Okay, these are the what? The 4 steps which are to be get involved in case of the formulation of the linear problems. Okay, now I have changed the screen. Okay, here. Okay, that is a LPP, linear programming problems. Okay, we have to define x1, x2, x3 as a variables. Okay, those are to be defined in the form of the mathematical expressions. Okay, to find the values of x1, x2, x3, then so on xn. Okay, as optimizing the linear function itself. So that we are defining the objective function as a z. Z is equal to c1 x1 plus c2 x2 plus cn xn. It means the c1, c2, c3 are what? These are the constant. Okay, those are to be get considered in variation with respect to that of what type of objective we need to achieve. Subjected to that, what is the subject here? Okay, whatever the coefficient you are going to consider with respect to that of variation of x1, then variation of x2, with respect to that, what objective you can meet. Those are to be defined as a linear expressions. Provided condition is that all those restrictions, what you are going to define, that should be, those values are non-negative values. Okay, it should not have any negative values itself. Those also you can concentrate. Okay, then whereas the whatever the unknown constants are there to be get considered in order to define the values itself. Okay, corresponds that the equality constants and inequality constants are to be considered to define that into a proper parameters. Okay, this is what the mathematical formulation which is to be used in case of the linear programming problems. Okay, this is the what the mathematical representation. Okay, you can remember this also because this is the used in order to define the functionality itself. Okay, along with that my notes, then you can add these things also. Mathematical modulation. Okay, don't write only those 4 steps. Along with this, if you are written which is having a more weightage, that also you can consider.